Katie Moore ran through the tall grass behind her family's house, her blonde hair flowing in the gentle breeze of New Haven's afternoon sun. The 8-year-old girl laughed as she chased after Clicks, her Velcari friend who looked like a giant insect walking on 2 legs. His green shell sparkled in the sunlight as he clicked and chirped in his native language. "Slow down, Clicks," Katie called out in perfect Velcari speech. "My legs are shorter than yours." Clicks stopped and turned his large compound eyes toward her. "Sorry, Katie, friend," he replied in careful English. "I forget human children are small." Katie smiled and caught up to him. She had learned the Velcari language faster than any adult in the colony. Her parents, Jack and Lisa Moore, were always amazed at how easily their daughter picked up the alien words and sounds. The Velcari elders said she had a gift for languages that even impressed them. New Haven was a peaceful world where humans and Velcari lived side by side. The human colony had been there for 15 years, and both species had learned to work together. Jack Moore worked as a terraforming engineer, helping to make the planet more suitable for human life. Lisa Moore studied the local plants and animals as a xenobiologist. They had come to New Haven when Katie was just a baby, so this alien world was the only home she had ever known. The Velcari were a proud warrior race with strict rules about honor and fighting. They looked like large insects with hard green shells, 4 arms and compound eyes. Most of them were much taller than humans. Their society was organized like a military, with different ranks and positions. At the top was War Prime Thexkar, an old warrior with many scars from ancient battles. He ruled the Velcari with firm but fair leadership. Under Thexkar served many battle commanders, including one named Zekmoth. Unlike his leader, Zekmoth did not like humans very much. He thought they were weak because they preferred talking to fighting. He was especially angry that many young Velcari, like Clicks, had started acting more like humans. They played games instead of practicing for war. They laughed and told jokes instead of learning battle tactics. Zekmoth saw this as a poison that was destroying Velcari culture. Katie and Clicks reached the edge of the colony where human buildings met Velcari structures. The human buildings were simple and practical, made of local stone and metal. The Velcari buildings were tall and angular, built to look intimidating and strong. Between them was a market where both species traded goods and food. "Katie," called out Paul Grant, the colonial administrator. He was a kind man in his 50s who managed the day-to-day affairs of the human settlement. "Your mother is looking for you. Dinner time?" "Okay, Mr. Grant," Katie waved back. She turned to Clicks. "Will you come to the festival tomorrow?" "Yes," Clicks clicked excitedly. First Contact Day is important celebration. Katie hugged her alien friend, something that would have shocked most humans when they first arrived on New Haven. Now it was normal to see human and Velcari children playing together. "See you tomorrow." As Katie ran home, she did not notice Zekmoth watching from the shadows of a Velcari building. His eyes followed her with cold calculation. To him, she represented everything wrong with the current situation. A human child speaking Velcari better than some Velcari youth. A symbol of how his people were becoming soft and weak. That evening, the Moore family sat down for dinner in their modest home. The walls were decorated with pictures of Earth which Katie had never seen, and local artwork made by both human and Velcari artists. "How was your day, sweetheart?" Lisa asked as she served Katie her favorite meal. "Great. Clicks and I found some new flowers by the river. They were purple with silver spots."
"Have you seen them before, Mom?"
Lisa smiled. Her daughter's curiosity about the local environment always made her proud. "No, I haven't. Will you show me tomorrow after the festival?" "Sure." "Oh, and Click said his father is making something special for the celebration. It's a surprise." Jack put down his fork and looked serious for a moment. "Katie, you know there might be some tension at the festival tomorrow, right? Some of the Velcari are upset about the mining situation." Katie tilted her head. "What mining situation?" Lisa explained in simple terms that both humans and Velcari had found valuable crystals in the mountains. Both groups wanted to mine them, but they could not agree on how to share the work and profits. "Some people think we should fight about it, but we think talking is better." "Fighting is stupid," Katie said matter-of-factly. "Clicks thinks so too. His father says young Velcari are learning wisdom from humans." Jack and Lisa exchanged a look. Their daughter did not understand how dangerous the situation was becoming. The Velcari tradition demanded trial by combat to settle major disputes. The humans preferred negotiation and compromise. This difference in approach was causing problems that even Katie's innocent friendship with the Velcari youth could not solve. "Just stay close to us at the festival tomorrow, okay?" Jack said gently. "Okay, Dad." Later that night, after Katie was asleep, Jack and Lisa sat on their porch looking up at the stars. New Haven had 2 moons and both were visible in the clear sky. "Do you think there will be trouble tomorrow?" Lisa asked. Jack sighed. "I hope not. Paul is trying to avoid any confrontation with the Velcari leaders, but Zekmoth has been pushing for a combat trial. He wants to prove that humans are cowards, and we're not cowards. We just think there are better ways to solve problems than fighting." "I know that. You know that. But Zekmoth sees our refusal to fight as weakness, and weakness is the worst thing you can show to a Velcari warrior." Lisa looked toward the Velcari section of the colony, where their buildings glowed with blue lights. "I worry about Katie. She loves the Velcari so much. She doesn't understand that not all of them love her back." "She's just a child," Jack said. "She sees the best in everyone. Maybe that's not such a bad thing." Neither of them knew that tomorrow would change everything. They did not know that their daughter's innocent trust and love would be met with unthinkable cruelty. They did not know that the galaxy was about to learn a terrible lesson about what happens when you harm a human child. For now, New Haven was still peaceful. For now, Katie Moore was still safe. For now, humanity was still seen as the gentle species that preferred words to weapons. But that was all about to end. The morning of First Contact Day brought celebration to New Haven. Both human and Velcari families gathered in the central plaza, which had been decorated with colorful banners and symbols from both cultures. The smell of cooking food filled the air as vendors sold treats that mixed human and Velcari recipes. Katie wore her best dress, a bright blue one with silver stars that her grandmother had sent from Earth. She held her parents' hands as they walked through the crowd, her eyes wide with excitement at all the festivities. Velcari children clicked and chirped in their musical language while human children laughed and played games. At the center of the plaza stood a monument marking the day 15 years ago when humans first met the Velcari. It was made of both human metal and Velcari crystal, symbolizing the friendship between the 2 species. Today should have been a celebration of that friendship. War Prime Thexkar stood on a raised platform with the other Velcari leaders. His scarred shell gleamed in the sunlight, and his forearms were crossed in a gesture of respect. Beside him stood Battle Commander Zekmoth, whose eyes constantly scanned the crowd with barely hidden anger. Paul Grant approached the platform with other human leaders. He carried a proposal for sharing the crystal mining rights, hoping to avoid any conflict. The document represented weeks of careful negotiation and compromise, designed to benefit both species fairly. "War Prime Thexkar," Paul said formally, bowing slightly as Velcari custom required. "We bring a proposal for the crystal dispute. Our experts believe both our peoples can benefit if we work together." Thexkar took the document and studied it briefly. The old warrior valued honor above all things, but he also understood the importance of keeping peace with the humans. The proposal seemed reasonable to him, but Zekmoth stepped forward aggressively. "War Prime, this is exactly what I have warned about. The humans seek to avoid honorable combat because they are cowards. They use words and papers to hide their weakness. The humans seek peace, Zekmoth," Thexkar replied calmly. "There is honor in preventing unnecessary death." Zekmoth's compound eyes flashed with anger. "There is no honor in submission. Our warriors grow soft watching human children play instead of training for battle. Our youth speak their language and adopt their weak customs. This must end." The crowd had gone quiet. Both human and Velcari families stopped their celebrations to watch the confrontation. Katie stood between her parents, not fully understanding what was happening but sensing the tension in the air. "I challenge the human leader to trial by combat," Zekmoth announced loudly. "Let us settle this dispute as warriors should. If he defeats me, they may have their mining rights. If I defeat him, the humans will acknowledge Velcari superiority and leave our crystals alone." Paul Grant felt his stomach drop. He was not a warrior. He was an administrator, a man who had spent his life working with budgets and schedules and diplomatic meetings. The idea of fighting to the death with a trained Velcari warrior was terrifying and pointless. "Battle Commander," Paul said carefully, "I am not a fighter. Surely we can find another way to resolve this that does not require bloodshed." Zekmoth laughed, a harsh clicking sound. "As I thought. The human leader admits his cowardice before all witnesses. It is not cowardice to seek peaceful solutions, Paul replied, his voice growing stronger. It is wisdom. Wisdom? Zekmoth's voice rose to a shout. I will show you the wisdom of strength. Before anyone could react, Zekmoth leaped from the platform and landed in the crowd. His forearms grabbed people and pushed them aside as he moved with deadly purpose. Parents screamed and pulled their children away from the angry warrior. But Zekmoth was not targeting the adults. His eyes had locked onto something much more precious and vulnerable. Something that would prove his point about human weakness better than any combat trial. Katie, run! Lisa Moore screamed as she saw where Zekmoth was heading, but Katie was frozen with confusion and fear. She had never seen a Velcari act with such violence. In her young mind, Velcari were friends like cliques, not monsters to be afraid of. She could not understand why Zekmoth was coming toward her with such anger in his eyes. Zekmoth's powerful arms seized Katie before her parents could reach her. He lifted the small girl high above his head so that everyone in the plaza could see her clearly. You will not fight for your honor, Zekmoth shouted at Paul Grant, but perhaps you will fight for your spawn. Please, Jack Moore begged, pushing through the crowd toward his daughter. She's just a child. She has nothing to do with this. She has everything to do with this, Zekmoth replied coldly. She represents the poison that weakens my people. Human children who steal Velcari hearts. Human ways that corrupt Velcari traditions. War Prime Thexkar was also moving through the crowd, his own warriors behind him. Zekmoth stopped this immediately. Release the child. I will show these humans the price of their weakness, Zekmoth declared. His ceremonial blade appeared in one of his free hands, its crystal edge gleaming wickedly in the sunlight. No. Lisa Moore's scream cut through the air like a knife. What happened next took only seconds, but it seemed to last forever. Zekmoth brought his blade down in a single brutal stroke. Katie's small body went limp in his arms. Her bright blue dress with silver stars turned red with blood. The plaza fell into absolute silence. Even the wind seemed to stop blowing. Both human and Velcari witnesses stood frozen in shock and horror. Zekmoth dropped Katie's lifeless body to the ground and raised his bloody blade in triumph. This is what happens to weakness. This is what happens when warriors forget their strength. But his moment of victory was short-lived. He looked around and saw something that chilled even his warrior heart. The Velcari in the crowd were backing away from him in horror. Even his own warriors looked disgusted. In Velcari culture, harming children was forbidden even in war. War Prime Thexkar reached Zekmoth first. Without a word, the old warrior struck his subordinate down with a single powerful blow. You have dishonored us all, he said quietly. You have broken the most sacred law. Jack and Lisa Moore fell to their knees beside their daughter's body. Lisa held Katie's still form while Jack's hands shook with grief and rage. Other human parents pulled their own children close, tears streaming down their faces. Paul Grant stood in the center of the plaza, his face pale with shock. The proposal for peaceful mining rights lay forgotten on the ground, stained with innocent blood. Within minutes, emergency signals were being sent across space. The quantum communication arrays carried a simple but devastating message to Earth and every human colony. Human child murdered by alien aggressor on New Haven. 8-year-old Katie Moore killed during cultural festival. Colonial population requests immediate assistance. The message traveled faster than light, reaching human worlds across the galaxy in a matter of minutes. On Earth, in military headquarters and government buildings, alarms began to sound. Fleet commanders received priority alerts. The president's emergency cabinet was called into session. Katie Moore had been loved by everyone who knew her. But now she would be mourned by an entire species. And that species was about to remind the galaxy why you should never, ever hurt their children. The age of human gentleness was about to end. President Amanda Cole was reviewing trade reports in the Oval Office when her assistant burst through the door without knocking. The look on his face told her immediately that something terrible had happened. Madam President, we have an emergency transmission from New Haven Colony. Priority 1. Amanda's blood went cold. Priority 1 messages were reserved for the worst possible situations. She followed her assistant to the Situation Room, where her cabinet was already gathering. The quantum communication screen showed a live feed from New Haven. This is Colonial Administrator Paul Grant, came the shaky voice from the speakers. At approximately 14:30 local time, during our first Contact Day celebration, a Velcari battle commander named Zekmoth murdered 8-year-old Katie Moore in cold blood. The child was completely innocent. This was an unprovoked attack on a human child. The room fell silent. Secretary of Defense Steve Roberts, a former Marine general, slowly stood up from his chair. His weathered face had gone hard as stone. "Show me the footage," he said quietly. "Sir, I'm not sure that's—" Paul Grant's voice began. "Show me the footage," Steve repeated, his voice like ice. The screen changed to security camera video from the plaza. Amanda Cole watched in horror as the events unfolded. She saw Katie Moore, a small blonde girl in a pretty blue dress, playing happily with alien children. She saw the confrontation between the adults, and then she saw the unthinkable act that would change everything. When the video ended, the Situation Room was dead quiet. Amanda looked around at her cabinet members and saw the same expression on every face. "Cold, absolute fury. Options," she said simply. Admiral Chris Ward, head of fleet operations, spoke first. "We can have the 3rd Fleet at New Haven in 6 days. Standard diplomatic response with military backup." "Not good enough," Steve Roberts said. "I want everything. Every ship, every Marine, every orbital platform. I want the largest military force in human history assembled and pointed at Velcari space." Dr. Helen Cross, Secretary of Xenological Affairs, tried to speak up. "Perhaps we should consider diplomatic—" "No." The word came from Amanda Cole herself. "Dr. Cross, I appreciate your dedication to peaceful solutions. But they killed a child. A human child. There will be consequences." Steve Roberts activated his command interface. "I'm implementing Protocol 7, Total War Authorization. Every Colonial Defense Force, every reserve unit, every mothballed ship gets reactivated. Now." Within hours, the message went out across human space. From Earth to the Outer Rim colonies, from military bases to civilian shipyards, the same order was received. Human child murdered by alien aggressor. All available forces report for immediate deployment. Priority Alpha response authorized. The response was unlike anything in human history. Colonial governors who had never agreed on anything suddenly worked together to send ships and soldiers. Merchant captains volunteered their cargo vessels to carry supplies. Retired officers came out of retirement to serve again. Captain Ryan Blake was fishing on a lake in Alaska when his communicator buzzed with an emergency recall. The former military officer had left active duty 2 years ago to spend time with his own children. When he read the message about Katie Moore, he was in his car and driving to the nearest spaceport within 10 minutes. "They killed someone's little girl," he told his wife over the phone. "I have to go." On Mars, the shipyards that had been building civilian transports immediately switched to warship production. Workers volunteered for double shifts. Engineers pulled blueprints for weapon systems that had never been built before. Fleet Admiral Chris Ward stood in the command center watching the deployment reports come in. In just 48 hours, humanity had assembled a fleet of over 3,000 ships. Battleships, destroyers, carriers, cruisers, and support vessels from across 50 different star systems. "Sir," reported Captain Lisa Stone, his aide, "we're receiving volunteer offers from every human colony. Some places are sending their entire defense fleets. What about the alien species?" Chris asked. "Any diplomatic contact?" The Arcturian Federation expressed sympathy and offered medical aid. The Centauri Republic offered to mediate. The Velcari sent a message saying Zekmoth has been arrested and will face trial under their law. Chris Ward's expression did not change. "Tell them that's not enough. Tell them we're coming." On New Haven, War Prime Thexkar was trying to understand what he had unleashed. The human colonial defense force had been small and peaceful. Suddenly, his sensors were detecting massive ship movements throughout human space. "How many vessels are they sending?" he asked his intelligence officer. "War Prime, our estimates suggest they are mobilizing their entire military capacity. Every ship, every soldier, everything they have." Thexkar's compound eyes widened. "For one child?" "Yes, War Prime. For one child." The old warrior felt something he had rarely experienced in his long life. Genuine fear. He had fought in many wars, faced many enemies. But he had never seen an entire species mobilize for a single death. He summoned his council of battle commanders. "We must send a diplomatic message. Offer compensation. Offer to execute Zekmoth publicly. Offer whatever they want." "War Prime," one of his officers said hesitantly. "They are not responding to diplomatic channels. They have one message: surrender Zekmoth for human justice or face the consequences. And if we refuse, then they will come for us all." Thexkar looked at the star chart showing human fleet movements. The scale was incredible. They were not sending a punitive expedition or a show of force. They were sending everything they had. Why? He asked himself quietly. Why would they risk everything for one death? His intelligence officer overheard. War Prime, our studies of human culture suggest that they value their children above all else. They will sacrifice anything to protect them. But the child is already dead. What can they accomplish now? Revenge, War Prime, and a message to every species in the galaxy. They want everyone to know what happens when you harm a human child. On Earth, President Amanda Cole held a press conference. The world watched as she stood at the podium, her face calm but her eyes filled with steel. My fellow humans, she began. Today we learned that one of our children was murdered by an alien warrior on the peaceful colony of New Haven. 8-year-old Katie Moore was killed without cause, without provocation, without mercy. She paused, letting the words sink in. We have always sought peace with other species. We have always tried to resolve conflicts through negotiation and compromise. But there are lines that cannot be crossed. There are acts that cannot be forgiven. The murder of our children is one of those acts. The president's voice grew harder. We have given the Velcari one chance to surrender the murderer for human justice. If they refuse, we will take him ourselves, and we will make sure that no alien species ever again thinks it is safe to harm a human child. Across human space, families watched the broadcast with their own children sleeping safely in their beds. They understood the message. They supported the decision. Katie Moore could have been any of their children. Fleet Admiral Chris Ward received his final orders. Proceed to Velcari space. Deliver the ultimatum. If they refuse, execute total warfare protocols. The largest military fleet in human history began moving toward Velcari space. They carried no flags of conquest, no dreams of empire. They carried something much more dangerous, the absolute determination of a species that had lost one of its children. The galaxy was about to learn what sleeping giants look like when they finally wake up. The human fleet arrived at the edge of Velcari space like a storm cloud blotting out the stars. 3,000 ships of every size and class hung in perfect formation, their weapons powered but not yet aimed. At the center of the formation was the massive battleship UHS Retribution, flagship of Fleet Admiral Chris Ward. On the bridge of the Retribution, communications officer, Lieutenant Sarah Kim opened a channel to the calm Velcari homeworld of Veltar Prime. The message was simple and final. This is Fleet Admiral Chris Ward of the Human Solar Defense Force. We demand the immediate surrender of Battle Commander Zekmoth. For trial and execution under human law, you have 1 hour to comply. On Veltar Prime, War Prime Thexkar stood in his command chamber surrounded by his military advisors. Through the massive windows he could see his own fleet preparing for battle. 200 Velcari warships, each one built for honor combat and individual glory. War Prime, his communications officer reported. The human admiral is waiting for your response. Thexkar looked at the tactical display showing the human fleet. The numbers were overwhelming, but numbers alone did not win battles. The Velcari had superior individual ship combat capabilities. Their warriors were trained from birth for war. Open a channel, he commanded. Chris Ward's image appeared on the screen, his face calm but his eyes cold as space itself. Admiral Ward, Thexkar began, I deeply regret the actions of Zekmoth. He violated our own laws by harming a child, but I cannot surrender him to alien justice. To do so would be to admit that Velcari law is inferior to human law. Your law failed to protect Katie Moore, Chris replied quietly. Our law will ensure justice is done. The child's death was tragic, but surely we can reach a compromise. We will execute Zekmoth ourselves. We will pay compensation to the family. We will establish new protocols to prevent such incidents. Chris Ward's expression did not change. You have 53 minutes remaining. The channel closed. Thexkar turned to his advisors, seeing doubt in their compound eyes for the first time in his military career. War Prime, Battle Commander Velkoth said carefully, perhaps we should consider their demands. The human fleet is larger than anything we have ever faced. We are Velcari. Thexkar's voice boomed through the chamber. We do not bow to inferior species. We have faced overwhelming odds before and emerged victorious through superior skill and warrior spirit. But privately, the old warrior felt uncertainty gnawing at him. The humans had never shown such military capability before. Their previous conflicts had been small defensive actions. This was something entirely different. 53 minutes later, the human fleet received Thexkar's final answer. We will not surrender Zekmoth to alien justice. If you want him, come and take him. On the bridge of the Retribution, Chris Ward closed his eyes for a moment. When he opened them again, they held no mercy. All ships, he broadcast across the human fleet. Execute Protocol 7. Total warfare authorization is now active. Remember Katie Moore. What followed was not a battle in any traditional sense. The Velcari fleet moved to engage the humans in the honorable way of their ancestors. Ship against ship, warrior against warrior. They expected the humans to meet them in glorious combat. Instead, the human fleet opened fire all at once. Captain Tony Reed commanded the destroyer UHS Vengeance, part of a wolf pack of 50 similar ships. They did not engage in individual duels. They swarmed Velcari vessels like angry insects, coordinating their attacks with mathematical precision. Target the flagship, Tony ordered his weapons officer. All ships concentrate fire on Grid 77 Alpha. The Velcari battlecruiser Warrior's Pride found itself under attack by 12 human ships simultaneously. Its captain, a veteran warrior named Klextar, tried to engage them one at a time as honor demanded. His ship was destroyed in 47 seconds. Lieutenant Commander Beth Taylor coordinated the orbital bombardment from her position aboard the battleship UHS Hammer. The Velcari had military installations on 17 different planets and moons in their home system. All of them were targeted simultaneously. Fire Mission Alpha through Tau, she announced calmly. All targets are military installations. Rules of engagement, complete destruction. Beams of coherent energy lanced down from orbit, turning Velcari military bases into molten craters. There were no warnings, no chances for honorable surrender. This was not a war for territory or resources. This was extermination. Major Dan Price led the ground assault on Veltar Prime itself. His Marines landed in drop pods, their mission simple: find and eliminate all Velcari command structures. They moved through Velcari cities like ghosts, using technology and tactics the insectoid warriors had never encountered. Contact front, reported Sergeant Amy White over the comm. Velcari infantry, battalion strength. Bypass them, Dan ordered. Our target is the command center. Leave the civilians alone unless they attack us directly. The humans showed no interest in conquering Velcari territory or enslaving their population. They wanted only to destroy the military capacity of the species that had killed their child. War Prime. Thexkar watched his civilization crumble from his command bunker deep beneath the surface of Veltar Prime. His fleet was gone. His bases were destroyed. His armies were scattered. How is this possible? He asked his surviving staff. How can they coordinate so many ships so perfectly? Dr. Kevin Walsh, the human fleet's xenobiologist, was documenting everything from his position aboard a science vessel. His job was to study Velcari military capabilities and ensure that none of their technology could be used against humans in the future. Subject species demonstrates typical warrior culture limitations, he recorded into his personal log. Individual combat excellence, rigid honor codes, inability to adapt to modern warfare tactics. Estimated time to complete military elimination, 14 hours. On New Haven, Jack and Lisa Moore sat beside their daughter's grave. The sounds of the battle in space were invisible from the planet's surface, but they knew it was happening. Every human in the colony knew. Do you think this is what she would have wanted? Lisa asked quietly. Jack was silent for a long time. I think she would have wanted to live, he finally said. But since she can't, I want the galaxy to remember what happens when you take that choice away from her. Back in space, the systematic destruction continued. When Velcari colonies tried to surrender, the human fleet ignored them. When civilian ships attempted to flee, they were tracked down and their crews detained. When Velcari diplomats begged for negotiation, their messages went unanswered. Admiral Chris Ward stood on the bridge of the Retribution, watching the tactical display as red markers representing Velcari forces winked out one by one. Sir, reported his communications officer, we're receiving surrender offers from 47 different Velcari installations. Denied, Chris replied without hesitation. Continue the operation. Sir, some of these are civilian facilities. Research stations, medical centers, schools. Chris turned to look at the officer, his face carved from stone. They had schools on New Haven too. That didn't stop them from killing Katie Moore in front of children. By the end of the first day, the Velcari military no longer existed as an organized force. War Prime Thexkar was dead. killed when human Marines stormed his command bunker. Battle Commander Zekmoth, the murderer who had started it all, was taken alive and placed in a containment cell aboard the Retribution. But the humans were not finished. Captain Lisa Stone commanded the follow-up phase of the operation, the complete erasure of Velcari technological capacity. Every shipyard was destroyed. Every weapons factory was melted down. Every computer containing military data was wiped clean. "Why are we doing this?" asked one of her junior officers. "The war is over. We've won." Lisa looked at him with eyes that had seen too much death. "We're not just fighting a war, Ensign. We're sending a message. Every species in the galaxy needs to understand that harming human children has consequences that last forever." The Velcari homeworld, once the proud center of a warrior empire, was left as a barren rock. Its cities were empty. Its fleets were scrap metal. Its people were scattered to the winds. Of the 847 million Velcari who had existed before Katie Moore's murder, only 12 remained alive, kept in secure facilities as witnesses to what had happened. The galaxy watched in silence as humanity demonstrated that their peaceful nature came with an absolute condition: do not harm their children. The age of human innocence was over. The age of human dominance had begun. 6 months after the last Velcari warship was destroyed, Ambassador Carol Lee stood before the Galactic Council on the neutral station of Harmony Prime. Representatives from over 200 species filled the vast chamber, their various forms of alien biology creating a rainbow of colors and shapes. But today all eyes were on the human ambassador. Carol was a small woman in her 50s, dressed in a simple black suit. She carried no weapons, made no threatening gestures, and spoke in a calm, measured voice. Yet every being in the chamber was afraid of her. "Honored delegates," Carol began, her words translated into dozens of alien languages. "I come before you today to clarify humanity's position in galactic affairs following recent events." Recent events. Such simple words for the complete annihilation of an entire species. In the months since the Velcari extinction, the galaxy had watched humanity with new eyes. The peaceful traders and explorers were revealed to be something far more dangerous. The species that grew flowers and wrote poetry had demonstrated a capacity for total warfare that shocked even the most militaristic alien cultures. "We do not seek to dominate other species," Carol continued. "We do not desire your worlds or your resources. We offer the same friendship and cooperation we have always offered. Trade agreements, scientific collaboration, cultural exchange. All of these remain available to any species that wishes to engage with humanity." She paused, letting her words sink in. "However, there is one condition that is not negotiable. Human children are protected by the full might of our species. Any being, anywhere in the galaxy who harms a human child will face the same fate as the Velcari." A ripple of nervous movement went through the chamber. The Velcari had been a major military power, controlling dozens of star systems and commanding respect throughout their region of space. Now they were nothing but a cautionary tale. On Earth, President Amanda Cole watched the speech from her office. The last 6 months had changed her as much as they had changed humanity's reputation. She looked older, harder, but also more determined than ever. Her aide brought her the daily reports from across human space. Colony populations were growing as humans felt safer knowing their military could protect them. Trade agreements were being signed faster than ever, as alien species rushed to maintain good relations with humanity. But there were also the darker reports. Species that had previously ignored human territorial claims were now very careful to respect human borders. Pirates who had once targeted human merchant ships were finding other prey. The galaxy was learning to give humans a wide berth. On New Haven, life was slowly returning to normal. The colony had grown larger as new families arrived, drawn by the knowledge that this world was now under the absolute protection of the human military. A permanent fleet base had been established in orbit, and Marines patrolled the surface. Jack and Lisa Moore still lived in the same house where Katie had grown up. They had turned her bedroom into a memorial, keeping it exactly as she had left it. Visitors from across human space came to pay their respects to the little girl whose death had changed everything. "Do you ever regret it?" Lisa asked her husband one evening as they sat on their porch watching the sunset. Jack was quiet for a long time. "I regret that Katie is gone," he finally said. "But I don't regret what happened to the Velcari. They chose to cross a line that should never be crossed. In the detention facility aboard the space station Guardian, Battle Commander Zekmoth sat in his cell, the last high-ranking Velcari still alive. He had been given a trial, found guilty of murder, and sentenced to life imprisonment. Death would have been too merciful. Every day, human guards brought him reports about his extinct species. They wanted him to understand the full scope of what his single act of cruelty had unleashed. Zekmoth had thought he was making a statement about human weakness. Instead, he had revealed human strength. "Why did you keep me alive?" he asked Dr. Helen Cross during one of her psychological evaluation sessions. "Because someone needs to remember," Helen replied. "Someone needs to be able to tell the story of what happens when you murder a human child." Across the galaxy, the story was already being told. In the archives of the Arcturian Federation, scholars wrote detailed analyses of human military capabilities. The Centauri Republic revised their first contact protocols to include special warnings about protecting human children. Even species that had never met humans began teaching their young about the consequences of crossing the deadly peaceful species from Soldat Captain Ryan Blake, now commanding the battleship UHS Justice, patrolled the outer reaches of human space. His ship was part of the new Rapid Response Fleet, designed to react instantly to any threat against human civilians anywhere in the galaxy. "Captain," his communications officer reported, "we're receiving a distress call from the merchant vessel Lucky Star. They report being attacked by pirates in the Kepler system." "Are there any children aboard?" Ryan asked immediately. "Yes, sir. The manifest shows 3 families with young children." Ryan's expression hardened. The pirates had no idea what they had just triggered. "All ships, maximum speed to Kepler system. Launch fighters. Prep the Marines. These pirates are about to learn why you don't threaten human children." The response was swift and absolute. The pirate ships were destroyed within minutes of the human fleet's arrival. The survivors were taken prisoner and turned over to the local authorities with a simple message: harm human children and face extinction. Word spread quickly through the criminal underground. Human ships became untouchable targets. Human colonies were avoided entirely. The galaxy's predators found easier prey elsewhere. Dr. Kevin Walsh published his final report on the Velcari extinction 6 months after the last shots were fired. The document became required reading at military academies across human space and was quietly studied by alien intelligence services throughout the galaxy. The complete elimination of the Velcari species serves as proof of human military capabilities when fully mobilized, he wrote. However, the strategic implications extend far beyond simple military power. Humanity has demonstrated that their peaceful nature is conditional upon the safety of their children. This creates a unique dynamic in galactic politics where humans can be simultaneously trusted as peaceful partners and feared as absolute enemies. On Harmony Prime, Ambassador Carol Lee finished her speech to the Galactic Council with words that would be remembered for generations. "We are not conquerors," she said simply. "We are not warriors. We are explorers, scientists, artists, and dreamers. We want to learn from you, trade with you, and build a better galaxy together. But we are also parents, and we will do anything to protect our children." She gathered her notes and prepared to leave the podium, then stopped and turned back to the assembled delegates. Katie Moore was 8 years old. She spoke 3 languages, loved alien flowers, and dreamed of seeing the stars. She was murdered by a warrior who thought humans were weak. The Velcari species no longer exists because they were wrong about our weakness. Carol left the chamber in absolute silence. Behind her, 200 alien species contemplated the lesson they had just learned. In the years that followed, human space became the safest region of the galaxy. Trade flourished. Science advanced. Art and culture spread between species. Children of dozens of different alien races played safely on human worlds, protected by the same absolute determination that had once destroyed the Velcari. But in the archives and databases of every major civilization, one file remained prominently displayed. It contained security footage from a festival on New Haven, showing a small blonde girl in a blue dress being murdered by an alien warrior. Below the footage was a simple caption: "Remember Katie Moore. Remember what happens when you harm a human child." The galaxy remembered, and the galaxy learned to be very, very careful around the peaceful species from Earth, because sometimes The most dangerous predators are the ones who only hunt when their children are threatened, and humanity would always protect their children.